All right, we've got a lot of stuff on here, so we're going to kind of break this up into different increments so that we can help you better understand what's going on. A lot of this is going to be review. If you've been looking at the past 10 videos or so, you should be able to do this on your own. Some of this stuff will be new in here, but most of this you should be able to do on your own. You should be able to figure this stuff out. I'm going to help you out. This is our equator right here. This line says equator right here. This here is the Tropic of Capricorn. This here is the Tropic of Cancer. This black line is the ecliptic line. And it's showing us the path that the sun and the planets take as they move across the constellations, or what we call the Mazareth. They all move in this direction like this. Here's what's called the area, everything above the equator. If you remember, the water's above the dragon head. Everything below the equator, the water's below the dragon tail. Here we have Draco up here. And along the equator, we have 3 dragons. We have one dragon here, Hydra, head above the equator. Serpens, head above the equator. And Cetus is head above the equator. So you got the above the equator, the water's above. Below the equator, the water's below. Dragon head, dragon tail. Okay, this should be fairly, if you've been paying attention and following along, then this should be fairly easy for you to still track along with. Okay, we have what's called here, this green path right here. This is the lunar path. As the moon is coming from this direction, it's headed this way, comes around through here, drops down below here, comes up this way, and drops up through here. Okay, now just like our equinoxes have descending, here's the fall equinox and the ascending node, or this would be the descending node, not the ascending. Descending. Here's the descending node of the equinox right here. It's dropping below the equator. We also have the ascending node of the equinox as it moves above the equator. Just like the equinox has an ascending and descending node, so too does the lunar path. The lunar path has its ascending node right here. The ascending node is what we know as the area of the head. And we also have the descending node right here, which is also known as the area of the tail. Now keep in mind, okay, just keep this in mind, that everything that is above the equator is in the area of the dragon head. However, okay, with regard to this lunar path through here, as we go across the plane, you'll notice that the lunar path drops down below the equator, but still, if you remember correctly, we said that it's also true that everything that's above, shall we say, the ecliptic, or above the ecliptic line at this point, is in also the area of the dragon head. So here we have the lunar path crossing over here at this point right here, and so it's above the equator, so it's in the dragon head, and it's above the ecliptic line, so it's also in the dragon head. But even though it drops below the ecliptic, the equator here, it's still above the ecliptic line, so it's still in the area of the dragon head. So everything above the ecliptic line, whether it's above the equator or below the equator, is in the area of the dragon head. This is very important to remember. Now, keep in mind that we had a number of different things that took place over the course of this year. I'm going to go ahead and stop right here at this point and give you a chance to kind of look at what we've talked about already. We've got the equator, we've got the tropics, we have the ecliptic line, and we have the lunar path. We have the ascending node of the ecliptic line, the ascending node here, or the descending node of the ecliptic line right here. We also have the lunar path as it comes over the ecliptic line here, going up into the area which is the ascending node. And we also have a descending node right here. Keep in mind that the ascending node is the area of the head, the descending node is the area of the tail. I'm going to stop right here, give you a chance to kind of look at this, and we're going to come on back in and continue. All right, so we ended right here with the descending node of the area of the tail. You'll probably notice I've added a couple different things here. I entered the summer solstice right here, and also the winter solstice right here. So that way we have our equinox points, our equinox, winter solstice, equinox, summer solstice as well. So just wanted to add those things in there. Okay, so we talked about the ascending and descending node of the equinox areas, and also about the ecliptic line. Okay, now we're going to get more into the specifics. Well, we already mentioned we have dragon here, we got a dragon here, and we got a dragon here. We also have a dragon right here as well. So we have the area of the dragon head and the area of the dragon tail. Okay, so let's kind of get into the, shall we say, the semantics of what we've been looking at over the last number of months with regard to 923 and all the things that were surrounding that. Okay, so here we are. Here we have our ecliptic line, and it's the ecliptic line is right through here. But we have our lunar line, which is in the green line. We see that the lunar line is crossing over the ecliptic line right here at this point, and it's coming up above the ecliptic line, so it's now in the area of the head of the dragon. Now we also have this same line. I've kind of tried to keep it going through here. And you got the same line right here at this point. Okay, in Capricorn, we have the ecliptic line dropping below or the lunar line dropping below the ecliptic line. So this is actually would be the tail of the dragon. Now this is very important. Okay, you can follow this lunar line all the way through here. And you can notice that over the course of the last few years, this nodal point has been here. Now, what's interesting about this is that these nodal points move, and we talked about that in a previous video. But here's what's interesting for us, from our perspective. On August 7th, 2017, a lunar eclipse took place right here. Moon came through here, dropped below the ecliptic line, and as it dropped below the ecliptic line here in the tropic, or here in the constellation of Capricorn, it had a lunar eclipse right here. This is marking the dragon tail. Okay, and then it continued to keep going around through here. 14 days later, you see it marked here, but we're going to mark it over here. 14 days later, on August 21st, okay, it came up over the ecliptic line, and that marked the area of the head of the dragon. So, the lunar eclipse and the solar eclipse, lunar eclipse on August 7th, 2017, solar eclipse on August 21st, 2017, marked the tail and the head of the dragon. So it's kind of almost like if you realize that the sun and the moon and the planets, they all go this way across the ecliptic line, but if you remember, our dragon up here is pulling the equinoxes this way. And so the dragon is pointed in the direction that the equinoxes go, but it's almost like this dragon is being pulled by the tail because these nodal points move over time. Okay, and so a few years ago they would have been here, 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 and so forth, and they go this way. If you look at the video that we had on what we call the solstice, not the solstices, but the solar cycle and eclipses and dragons and things like that, it explains how the solar cycle moves over time. So it's like this dragon's being pulled by the tail across the Mazareth, or the gospel presentation of the stars. So on August 7th, we had the tail of the dragon marked out. And on August 21st, we had the head of the dragon marked out. Okay? So this is where our dragon's at. Right here. Now here's what's interesting. Okay? On 9/18 of this year, 2017, we had Venus sitting right here, just inside the head of the dragon. Then we had right here, we had the moon sitting right here in its last phase of the crescent phase, or what's known as the crown phase. Then we had, right here, we had Mars, and then we had Mercury. Then right here, we have the sun. Now the sun is always on the ecliptic line, but the sun in this particular point right here is just above the equator, so the sun is in the area of the head of the dragon. And all four of these are in the area above the ecliptic line where they're in the head of the dragon. Now as we drop down below, we see Jupiter right here. It's above the ecliptic line, even though it's below the equatorial line, it's in the head of the dragon. Then we have also right here, we have Saturn. It is above the ecliptic line, even though it's below the equatorial line, and it's in the area of the head of the dragon. So we have, literally, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 heads. There's your dragon heads. And if you look at our previous video, you understand that they're also in the position where they would be in their crown phase. So not only do you have 7 dragon heads, okay, you also have 7 crowns. You got 7 heads and 7 crowns right here. Let me contend, this was the dragon. This actually took place on 9/18/2017. This is a fascinating presentation in the sense not because I did it, but because it's fairly easy to see. What's interesting behind this is that this dragon position like this sort of kind of takes the same type of presentation that Hydra does. And you can see that the termination point is at the same exact spot right here. So there's a lot of information right here. I'm going to give you a chance to look at this. We're going to stop and we're going to come back and finish this video. Thank you. All right, we're going to wrap up. So let's go into the areas of the pink information right here. We talked about the positions of the sun, the moon, Jupiter, Mercury, Mars, Venus, Saturn. And if you remember in our previous video, we talked about their crown phase and how they're actually all in the crown phase, including the sun. And the sun is also above the equator, so it's in the head of the dragon, and it's actually at its corona and its crown phase right here. So you have your 7 heads and your 7 crowns on your 7 heads. Okay. So in addition to this, we have a presentation right here with Jupiter sitting right here and the planet right here. It's called Nibiru. Now let me tell you this. Okay. I had never read anything by David Meade or anybody else regarding Nibiru. In fact, I didn't even believe in Nibiru a year ago. And it was through some information somebody sent to me from Stellarium. They gave me coordinates and information by which you could actually put it in and actually see Nibiru. And Nibiru was sitting right here on this day, 9/18/21. Okay? It was seen by the Babylonians, but we don't see it. Nibiru was the star of Mahushu, or the Great Red Dragon, if you remember in one of our previous videos. Okay? So I didn't invent this. Okay? So you come to me with all this stuff about, oh, you know, you're a fool, you're dumb, or Nibiru's going to do this or do that. Don't come to me with any of that. Okay? Fact of the matter is, I just put this in with Stellarium. I didn't believe it, and I actually tracked Nibiru, and it tells a very telling story that goes along with everything that we see in Scripture regarding redemption and the conflict between our Redeemer and the enemy and so forth. But ironically, if you also remember in one of the past videos that we talked about, not only did we see that God had actually orchestrated all of this, created the constellations, organized the whole thing, put the whole thing together for us. Not only did he do that, but according to Jeremiah chapter, I think it's 32 verse 50, it says that the Lord set wonders in Egypt and in Israel and other places around the world by which he'd make a great name for himself. Yeah, one of those wonders, I personally believe, was the Great Pyramid of Giza. And it just happens to be, Daniel Matson did a really good job in explaining how the Great Pyramid of Giza has been used in times past with regard to the advance of Christ. Okay? But it just happens to be on this time and this time only in the history of the world. For 3 days, from 9/18 through the vernal equinox, or through the fall equinox, Nibiru and Jupiter are sitting at meridian, looking right at the Great Pyramid of Giza. So in other words, when these are all lined up on 9/18, the Great Pyramid is sitting right here. Nibiru and Jupiter are all lined up. That is not a coincidence. So please don't come back to me with something outlandish about Nibiru, and don't come back to me and talk to me about how it's not there. If you're going to say something like that, just go look in Stellarium. Okay, put the coordinates in and go look at it. By the way, Google Earth has it as well. So it is there. But it's not all this stuff that you see on TV or on the internet regarding cataclysms and things like that. Okay, that's just a bunch of hooey as far as I'm concerned. So, okay, let's get over this over here. Okay, so when did this all start to take place? Well, if each new moon or horn is representing one of the 10 new moons or horns, this would have started sometime around 3/29, 2017, which would have been right around Nisan 1, okay? And it would continue all the way through with your last new moon or set of horns fully completing on December 25th, 2017. Yes, this week on Christmas Day, okay? All right. However, there's sort of kind of like a bridge between Revelation 12 and Revelation 13. Okay, Revelation 13 is talking about the geopolitical world at the time. However, it also talks about the 10 horns, and those 10 horns are talking about the 10 powers of 10 nations that are going to be associated with the beast. It says that each one of them receives 10 crowns. Okay? Well, 10 crowns completes on 1/15 in 2018. I'm just saying, this is just something to watch. Now, the question is when do we actually start counting? Do we start counting on Nisan 1, or we start counting at the time of the eclipse, or do we start counting at the time of 9/23/17? The question is, when do we start counting? Personally, I start here, but I'm open to other suggestions on that. Finally, let me finish up. We've got these pink depictions right here. Each one of these areas right here is talking about the transition points between each of the constellations. In other words, the equinoxes, as they come across and they have their transition points, we're primarily concerned with what we know now as the vernal equinox. Okay? So at some point in time when the vernal equinox moved from Taurus to Aries, that took place from 1900 BC to 1500 BC. This is the period from the time of Jacob to the Exodus. Okay? Now, here we have again, okay, as it continues to move, the dragon's pulling it this way, as it continues to move, and the vernal equinox is right here. When it leaves Aries, and when it goes into Pisces, from 400 BC to 1 AD, this is the intertestamental period. This is the close of the Old Testament. This is the beginning of the New Testament with the birth of John the Baptist and the birth of Christ. Then we come across through here, and we come into 2017 AD. We are now leaving Pisces, and then from the transition from here to Aquarius is 1,000 years. Okay? I'm just telling you. That's the way this is set up. You can challenge this all you want. The fact of the matter is, unless you're going to sit down and spend the time to look at the years and years and years as I and others have done, I'm going to encourage you to please not comment, or at least be polite and don't be rude. Okay, this is a big presentation. We spent a lot of time putting together a bunch of videos trying to piecemeal everything to you in order to kind of sort of lead you along so that when we put all this up here, it doesn't all of a sudden hit you. If there's things about this that you don't understand, please go ahead and make a comment in the links or in the comment section below. I'll be glad to respond to you. Or go back and look at the videos. You might actually have your answer in there. Anyway, I appreciate everyone who helped me with this. My daughter who filmed, the teachers who allowed me to use their classrooms, my wife who is standing right behind the camera right now, who's filming right now, let me use her classroom, and all of those individuals who have given me encouragement and so forth. I deeply appreciate it. Thank you very much. And hopefully we're just going to watch. We're just going to keep watching. But the fact of the matter is that 9/23/17 was the time in the advent of the woman. 9/18, 9/21 was the advent of the dragon. Clearly the dragon had to be in place ahead of the woman in order for him to be able to devour the man-child as the man-child was brought forth. There's more information out there regarding the bringing forth of the man-child and everything, but that's not for this video. If we want to do something later on, we'll do something about that later on. Anyway, thank you for your time for watching, and God bless.